my name is Lindsay Schoolcraft, and I'm a musician. I mainly perform, write, all that stuff in the genre of gothic metal, symphonic metal, and obviously I sing and play the harp and piano. My friends jokingly call my music like teenage poetry. It's very like dark, romantic sob story, but a lot of it is very liberating, standing up for yourself, self-discovery, and it does tend to go a little more on the fantasy dark end of things without getting to like dragons and castles and princess. It's more of like she could maybe be a vampire. It kind of goes a little in that direction.
One of the things that sets you apart is the harp. When did you come up with that idea? What drew you to incorporating this beautiful, classical, ancient almost instrument into modern, heavier music?
I mean, it was definitely Bjork's Vespertine album that made me decide, wow, that's a really incredible instrument. I'd like to try it. And then it took me years to save for one. And I just did it for myself. It was just like, I like this. It's calming, it's soothing, it's fun, it's new, because I played the piano forever. And then I could hear it in the background of Nightwish albums and Within Temptation albums when they use the full orchestra. Obviously, that's a grand harp. I have like a smaller folk harp, but it's kind of same family. So I thought, what would be really neat is to try to incorporate this and be experimental and maybe take out a piano part and throw it on the harp and see how that sounds. And that's kind of how it started getting integrated into my music and some of the metal the metal albums that I've been part of, I guess, performed on, featured on. What I'll do is sometimes I'll just be like playing on the harp, like noodling around, and then I get this song idea, and the whole song comes from this harp piece. So usually it's like an accompaniment piece. It's not necessarily something that takes over and it's just played on the harp. You can have two different styles of songs, right? You see buskers in the street and they've got the whole melody and the harp speaks for itself, but I take it on as an accompaniment instrument, and it's really cool because I've written like my song New World was entirely on the harp, and then it turned into like this folk and gothic metal mashup. I started as a classical musician. I was in university, and the epic story is that I was in my first semester, and then Cradle of Filth contacted me, and I was gone. And I just left. I left my education in the dust. I still haven't gone back. So I feel like I'm this classical musician that just got roped into doing heavy metal, but it was so perfect, especially starting with a band like Cradle of Filth, because the classical element just mashed up together so well with their type of music. And at the time I was into bands like Camelot, Epica, Nightwish, Within Temptation. So I liked it because of the classical element there, but I also like things to be a little more darker and haunting. It just sets such a mood. It almost reminds me of my favorite film scores. So it's just kind of something that I fell into and I've never been able to escape from. People listen to this music when they're playing video games or reading a book, and usually it is fantasy based. And I feel like maybe that's what makes the two melt together. But also, I think it's been these stage personas. Like people, you see it with Ozzy and anyone going back, to the beginning. It's like this very dark, crazy imagery. And then you have like Eddie with Maiden, and she's like these crazy characters and performers that come on stage. And I think that's why it's gotten to a point where you see power metal and it's all about like the castle and the dragons and the knight. And I think that's why it's this crazy imagery has happened over time, because metal is like a world that you can escape into, and it can become very dark and fantasy based. I think that the cover art is probably one of the most important elements, especially when releasing your music, because people see you before they hear you. That's just the reality of things, especially in the modern world of the internet. So if you're not making some kind of art that represents what your music's sounding like, which is very tricky. Some people don't know how to do it. Some artists have no idea. Some artists have a complete idea and they know who they're hiring and where they're going. But if you don't have the album cover matching the music in some way, it's very confusing. And then people are like, wait a minute. They go to listen to your music. They're like, huh. And that can actually deter a lot of listeners if it's not like lining up. Like you want the colors or whatever it may be to match. Like, I find that people are like, oh, it's cooler toned, I might like this. Oh, it's warmer toned, it's going to be aggressive, I might like this. I think it's really important to keep the color psychology in mind when creating it. It starts when I'm writing and recording it, because I have synesthesia. So I see color when I listen to music, certain notes, certain envelope, certain treatment, certain reverb. It brings different colors to my mind. So when I'm working on the music, I'm already like, oh, these are the colors that I'm seeing and feeling, and I want the cover art to look like that. So usually it's already like in my mind right around the time that we're heavily recording everything. I hire an artist based on like what I like, what they're doing, and we try to match up the colors with that. The story of Martyr is actually this here, a fan who's become a friend, Anastasia Solti, she actually handed me this art framed and said like, this is for you. And I just kind of sat there and I was like, can I have this as my album cover? And she was so excited and she said yes. And then she went ahead and did all the artwork for this album, and she stuck with me for a few other albums as well. But with her, you know, I can send her like this really horrible sketch of like a stick person doing something and be like, this is what I'm seeing, here's the colors, and then boom, 5 minutes later she's got like a rough sketch to me. So we've had a really cool relationship in that way so far. That's what I love about fan art, because you know, and I got this massive collection behind me, is because it's their interpretation of you and your music and the persona, I guess the character that comes through in your music, because we all know that the everyday person is very different from the artist. We kind of go around with these two, you know, I feel always completely juxtaposed. I'm either like a gremlin mode potato, or I'm like this, like you see me right now. So it's just so interesting to see what they come up with. And clearly Anastasia had been listening to my music and she saw this figure, this like, you know, almost saintly figure, and it just matched the what was going on in my album as far as the gothic element musically, I guess you could say. And I was like, you know what, like this is so perfect. So it was strange kind of how like she was already creating something for me that matched when I was looking for something that had to match. It was like kind of this beautiful moment when the stars aligned. This is also from Anastasia, and this was my 10-year anniversary album, because I didn't realize that I'd been doing solo music for 10 years. So I did it all on harp and strings. It's very ethereal. And, you know, I told her the concept. I'm like, it's me in space, kind of like me always being, you know, not like my head up in the clouds, and me playing the harp and you know, with all these planets. And she just went ahead and she did it. And we made this beautiful, like all this artwork, these sleeves with all the lyrics. And it's really a nice experience because you get the art, and then you get like all the lyrics, and you can just sit down like back in the day, listen to your vinyl, and it really does take you away. Like, and it came out I recorded it during the pandemic and released it, I think in 2020. And a lot of people said at the time, they're like, this is what I needed because the world's on fire and I just need something to calm me down. So this experience was really cool for a lot of people. As far as other stuff goes, so my oldest EP, when the 10 years came up, I was working with an artist, I'm still working with him to this day, named Chris from Phantasma Photography. And I flew all the way out to the middle of nowhere, Saskatchewan, in the winter, because I'm an idiot. And it was worth it. And we did this photo together, and for the vinyl pressing, he was like, absolutely, I'd love to make the cover for you. And this actually, he knew the music. It's a weird story. Chris listened to this EP years before we met. He knew about my music. So when he did this up, he was thinking of the music, and he's like, how can I listen to this and bring the visuals to life? This album cover actually matches the music way more than the original album cover. So yeah, and then he did that. And did we do a sleeve? We did. I don't remember what my vinyl looked like. We also did that there. So I think he did a really good job. The only other cool thing I wanted to kind of show was we turned Martyr into like a storybook with all of Anastasia's artwork. It's like an extended pack where almost every song has its own artwork. And then this is where like artwork packaging goes to the extreme. This is a single, like a 7-inch vinyl for the song Savior, but I went a little too far and I turned the vinyl into like stained glass with the artwork. So it's more of a collector's item. I don't know if anyone actually ever like sat down and listened to these. I feel like they just like kept them and never like opened them. So that was me, because if you can't tell, I'm kind of a geek for album packaging. But yeah, like we did like a proper fold out, everything. Like we went the whole 9 yards with this one. So it's like you put so much time into your music, years, and so much money to just put it out there as like air that people listen to. It's just like, it's digital air, here it is, and just click and listen to it and then like forget about it. And it's like, well, not necessarily, I'm sure they revisit you, but I like physical music, so I'm like, I know there's other people out there who like physical music the way I do too, so that's why I consider pressing it and putting the artwork, because I know there's people out there that are going to want it and they're going to want to own it and they're want to look at it, because you know, I get it, like especially the past 3 years and during the winter months here, people just want to chill and like listen to their music and go through the lyrics and the artwork, and that's still the thing.
Big thanks to Lindsay for taking the time to hang. Keep an eye out for some of the incoming releases she's featured on this year. Definitely looking forward to that new one from Of Sulfur. It's got some amazing work on the cover by frequent collaborators Fabrications and Black Rabbit. And don't sleep on Antiqva, a side project she started with Zem from Ne Obliviscaris. Funeral Crown is one hell of a single with some pretty detailed artwork by Zen himself. Thanks for watching. Please consider subscribing and let us know in the comments below which bands or artists you want to hear from.